Hello, welcome to the Real Life Podcast, episode number 30. In this episode, following up from the last chat I had with Kuba, I sat down with him and watched Megalopolis, the Francis Ford Coppola epic, which cost him $120 million of his own money. And safe to say, it was quite the experience. It may well have trumped Napoleon from the last episode. So I thought, in the aid of a follow-up discussion, Kuba and I would sit back down and discuss through just what went so wrong and see if we could work out how to fix Megalopolis. We're also going to talk about what it may mean for Francis Ford Coppola's legacy as a whole and see if we can get to the bottom of just what the hell he was thinking. So I've had 12 or so hours to digest what occurred yesterday.
Right.
Kuba had already seen Megalopolis. You actually went to go and you paid to go into a theatre and view it.
£8 great British pounds sterling to go and see it, and I should have just bought, I don't know, a Happy Meal.
Yes, this has been the worst trade deal in the history of the United States. Yeah, and you were raving to me about just how terrible Megalopolis was.
Oh, it's the worst film I've ever seen by quite some distance.
I too, now that I've sat down with it for a few hours, I think it's the worst film I've ever seen as well. Yeah. I can't think of anything that has been so bloated, ridiculous, indulgent, pretentious and nonsensical as this, and ugly as this. Let's start with a general overview of the plot. I've done my best to create a sort of semi-accurate... Well, I mean, it feels semi-accurate because there isn't a plot. But here we go. In an alternative version of New York called New Rome, Caesar Catalina finds out that he has the ability to stop time through the miracle substance of megalon. That's how he gains this power, right? And using this, he's a visionary, he's an architectural genius, and he has a vision to create New Rome to be the primal leader in the race to become an ecological powerhouse with a climate-safe existence and the future of mankind. That's what he wants it to become. Everyone else is skeptical and a bit weird.
Yep.
And that's about it, as much as I can discern from the actual plot. Yeah, I mean, the thing is this... I'm doing this episode because we did last week where, in the intro, I said that Megalopolis had been hit with a wave of bad reviews, and then we were like, well, what were our least favourite films? Neither of us had seen Megalopolis by that point. I think you went and saw it the day after.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, and now it's, I think, 2 weeks later now, and I've seen it as well. It was weird because when we were sitting down to watch it, you were giddy. You were a giddy in anticipation about what I might think.
I was excited, because just sitting there and looking as your face slowly turned into a mask of bewilderment was great joy.
Well, I think you knew that I was going to have a terrible time with it. Yes. And I did say to him at the start, I'm trying not to talk, because if I do try and talk, then I'll be talking non-stop about how awful the whole thing is. What I'm going to start with in this discussion is just me reading out the notes that I wrote on my phone as we were watching it, sort of one by one, right?
This is good.
I mean, this isn't all of them, but this is sort of the headlines. Battered over the head by random opening reading. Time stopping established early. Got it. And then it says, it's a fable. So I put, nice try, Diddy. Italy lit up on the globe that spins around at start because Rome. Did you get? It's like Rome. There were trilbies in New Rome, and they do lesbianism because that's modern and cool now. Reading paper exposition with Giancarlo Esposito is horrendous. That happens about 1 million times. Someone picks up a newspaper. Yep. What is Natalie Emanuel's perspective? What is she trying to show? We just see her face non-stop. No reason for it. The dialogue is absolutely awful, I've written. Why does it look like a bad TV drama? News outlets' exposition is awful, and it looks awful. Voiceover... Who is this voiceover twat? Lawrence Fishburne doesn't deserve this. What are these title cards with 4 exclamation marks? What the fuck is going on? City Fair reveal is straight out of Scooby-Doo 2. That's what I didn't tell you. You know in Scooby-Doo 2, when the guys are nailing his mining fun fair?
Yeah.
Fun is, kids get to have fun and we get to profit from all the mining, or whatever he says. It was that, right? What is the point of Natalie Emmanuel? Why does she just give Larry Grayson looks everywhere? Shakespeare does not belong here, but you're just making me think I'd rather watch Adam Driver's Hamlet than this shit. This is utter nonsense. Someone broke Dustin Hoffman. I think this might be your favourite bit in the film. Do you want to...
Concrete! 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 And steel! Steel! Steel!
What on earth was the necessity to repeat both words 3 times? It's baffling.
One of 4 appearances throughout the film, each of them more pointless than the last. Dustin, why?
Dustin must have just looked at the paycheck and gone, why not? I'll be here for 2 days, and I'll collect however many million.
We're only about a third of the way
we're
through
not
the
even,
film.
We're not even a third of the way through. This is about 10 minutes in. The pointless vignette when he starts doing a speech at that fair reveal is nonsensical. It doesn't have any use. There's no need for it at all. Nobody told the man who made The Godfather to stop being such a selfish, useless prat. Did he not realise that nobody picked this up for over 40 years for fucking good reason? Everyone just says what they think. I don't give a single fuck that this group of people are pretentious idealists who have monetary power and status, which means they can waste their energy on this, but I don't want to see that. No one does. You're not making it compelling, you're making it boring.
Yep.
The script is diabolical. The only reason that Catalina's bedroom is messy is so she could complain about the mess, she could call him anal, then kneel down in front of him and say, I'm too oral. That is the only reason that scene is in there, because Francis Ford Coppola went, I've got a pun. Fucking useless.
No.
The man that made Apocalypse Now doesn't know how to write women properly. I then put Cassette Boys Wolf of Wall Street 2015, because that's what this entire thing felt like. Natalie Emmanuel goes to the office and she says, I'd like to talk to Caesar, please. And the receptionist says, about what? And she says, the future of the world.
God, kill me now.
And then you said, that's not how human conversation works. The breakfast scene, Emmanuel just runs around. She doesn't stand still or talk. She just dances. Why can't she just sit still? And then we have Adam Driver saying, yes, followed by, go back to the club. And I saw an interview earlier today on my YouTube Shorts, where Francis Ford Coppola said that he read a review complaining about the performances, and he's going, I shouldn't read reviews, but I don't understand the criticism of the performances. I don't get that. And the interviewer was going, well, I suppose you have to, it's in a different key, this movie, isn't it? He goes, thank you, you've put it perfectly. That's what I've been missing. Yeah, it's in a different key, this film. And you go, what? Did he not know? Is this the first he might have guessed that these performances were fucking weird?
I can't tell whether it's trying to be comedic in that moment.
Yeah.
Is it?
No. It's never trying to be comedic. That's not the tone this film takes. I've put all one word, stop flashing me the blonde woman, his dead wife.
Oh.
The same shots over and over again. The whole film is accidental screensavers that a 14-year-old Redditor would use trying to be forced into a sequence of images trying to become a film, and it is not a film. The bit where Caesar goes into the bank or the secure building, whatever it is, and there's some lasers across it.
Yeah.
And before he even gets to the door, the security guard turns off the laser. And then he walks in and goes, Caesar, nice to see you. Why even have the lasers on in the first place if you're just going to turn them off when any fucker turns up? It doesn't make any sense. How many drugs has he taken? How many shots of Natalie Emmanuel's face are there? When
the cars have gotten to
the cars is, I think, possibly the worst bit of the whole film.
Yep.
There is a sequence where people are driving in or being driven in cars, and every single one of them is looking pensively out of a wet window, like every 14-year-old's music video dreams as they're in the car, and nothing is happening at all. There's a moment in the cars where Lawrence Fishburne takes a hard right.
Yes.
And nothing in the background moves.
No.
He doesn't move. Adam Driver doesn't move. And the light behind him stays exactly the same. And you go, Francis, you are about 60 years deep into a career at this stage in which you have been rewarded as much, if not more, than anyone else.
Yeah.
What's happened to you? Who are you?
How can the guy who made The Godfather, Apocalypse Now, turn out this load of shite?
Yep. Then there's the bit in the elevator where they go up to the clock, and
The upwards facing clock.
the upwards facing clock, which has no relevance to anything at all, no necessity. It's just there because it can be, and all the green screen looks like, as you said, Spy Kids 3D.
Like, I understand time is meant to be a theme in this film,
Yeah.
to the point where Lawrence Fishburne suddenly starts,
Tweaking.
talking about, you can hold time or whatever, and, all that stuff with time. You can't do this with time, you can't do that with time. To the point where I just don't care.
Yeah, no one cares. That's the thing. No one cares about any of this.
No.
Because why would you? There is a moment, I think it's a Natalie Emmanuel, and she, for no good reason, to herself, in a room where only she is there, Adam Driver walks out having had a conversation, and anyone would pick up the subtext of, right, well, he still cares about his wife then.
Yeah.
And she goes, he still loves her.
Oh,
And it made me think of, there's a line that Jeremy Baines, the Doctor Who villain, says in Human Nature, The Family of Blood. He's the boy from the school who gets taken over in the Scarecrows episode. And there's a moment where I think it's Martha says something to him, and he, in his possessed form, goes, "Shut up, stop talking, cease and desist, there's a good girl!" And that is what I wanted to scream for the whole film.
Oh, her talking into a little voice recorder thing annoyed me to no end, especially in the car scene as you've got these giant CGI statues of you've got, Justice, and you've got, Moses holding the Ten Commandments, I'm pretty sure, and they're all, falling over and meant to represent that this city has become, morally blind, it's sinking into the depths of depravity, and you've got Natalie Emmanuel literally about 5 seconds after you've got these images on the screen going, the injustices of this city, we're dying in our own filth, and it's just, I know!
I've been here for half an hour, Francis, I can see it! This is the thing, right? I think the substance film is, on the whole, really, really good. I think it's wild. I think it's really unusual. I think it's a mental cinema experience. It's trying something really new, and it succeeds in that. My problem with it is that its imagery and its messaging is incredibly obvious, and I think beats you over the head far too much for me to fully get on board with the whole thing. As good as I think the rest of it was, this made the substance look like The Prestige.
Yes.
It was absolutely unbelievably head-battering. But Francis Ford Coppola shows you an image, you see the image, you see the metaphor, which, let's be honest, is a bad physical metaphor.
Yes.
Of things warping and looking in a certain way, and you go, right, okay, the rat symbolises obviousness, I've got all of this. And then Natalie Emmanuel or someone has to go, it means this, and you go, yes, I know, I've been here the whole time, I can see it. Shia LaBeouf is a ridiculous human being, and this is a role he was born to play.
Yes.
Because he gets to just be as annoying as humanly possible. Nobody cares. Fables have a point and are interesting. This isn't. Even the kids in the film, who are just extras, are not capable of generating any kind of excitement on their face because the whole thing is a fucking farce. The QR code that they hold up in the auction section, I said, takes you to horse porn with a track of Lawrence Fishburne laughing over the top of it. And after the auction, it literally becomes a drugged-up episode of Top of the Pops. It's when Caesar starts taking all the stuff.
It's edited like a YTP.
It is.
It's just him tweaking on all sorts of drugs, and him just saying the same phrase over and over and over again, like those foreshadowing memes.
Yeah.
It's just... Why?
No, this is the question I have for all of it. Why? But the problem is, right, with that question, is it implies that I want to know. And actually, I don't.
No.
I don't want to waste any more energy on this than I already have.
Despite, Megalopolis being his life's work, and, 40 years of rewriting and failures have led up to this, it doesn't ask any questions.
I learnt nothing from it.
Yeah.
And we will touch on this later, but coming from Francis Ford Coppola, that's incredibly ironic. But, so... The next, various complaints I have, the entire Colosseum sequence looks just awful. It looks so, so terrible. And you think 120 million, where did it go? What did you spend it on? Because I can't see a penny of it on the screen. The pillars next to the clock, the building blocks, the steel beams that they walk across, that, as you pointed out, the clock is the highest. It's made clear the clock is the highest thing in the city. So where the fuck are they hanging from? You said they're suspended from the ether, and I looked at it and went, "Oh my god, they are!" It's just so that you can have a scene where people walk across some steel beams.
He wants to conjure up that image of the New York workers from when they were building the Empire State Building, and they're sitting there having their lunch. He wants to conjure that up, but he can't find any place to suspend it. Oh, fuck it, I'll just put it in the clouds.
They're ethereal. That's what they are.
Yeah.
And then also he didn't tell the background designers that was supposed to be the tallest thing in the city, because there are buildings off in the distance that are evidently taller than the clock tower. Grabbing the moon, which is about a 2-second clip where Esposito has a dream in which someone grabs the moon.
It looks awful, I'm sorry.
It's horrendous.
It's like a Year 8 art piece where you get your mate to paint his hand blue and then grab a football.
Isn't it?
Awful.
That's such a spot-on comparison. I said that it was... You should show that little clip and have someone over the top going... and now for something completely different. Welcome to Monty Python. And then you get someone going, whoops, I've got your number that you couldn't afford me, and the Military Fairy. I would rather watch Military Fairy on repeat a million times than watch Megalopolis again. There is nothing about the film at all which makes you understand why Francis Ford Coppola wanted to make it.
No.
I can't think of anything in it at all which is exciting outside of he is obsessed with that element of the Roman Empire.
Yeah.
This is his Roman Empire. It's just the Roman Empire. He's that boring.
It's pointless. There's nothing. Everything is borrowed from somewhere else.
Absolutely.
Down, Shakespeare. It's influenced by what was the film Metropolis.
Yes, it is, and also heavily evidence of Caligula in there as well.
There's nothing new in it.
No. Then the satellite comes down from space that they said was going to break up over Labrador, and then someone comes in and goes, "It isn't," and we go, "Okay,
cool.
That's storytelling, I guess." And then as the satellite breaks down over New Rome, on the projection of every building in the city, suddenly a Shirley Bassey Bond opening starts, and literally it's like it's going, "Diamonds are forever," and there's people, gyrating on buildings, and you go, what the fuck is going on? What is happening?
It was...
So then we got the triple aspect ratio, where it splits the screen into 3, and that's after the smartphone ratio for no reason at the bottom.
His little speech thing, which was originally meant to be, I read about like an Amazon AI thing. He was meant to have various different statements that, as the audience, you could ask a question, and one of those statements that would be most applicable would be played. But in the end, they were left with this one because the technology couldn't work or whatever. Yeah. It can be summed up as love and friendship conquer all.
Literally, that's it. That's it. It was like, love is the old, and you just, wow, yeah, the messaging, the drama, I mean, I worry massively that Francis Ford Coppola spent ages unnecessarily trying everything he could to get that AI section to work.
Yes.
And that's where the money and the time went. Because the problem with that is that I think inherently it's just a stupid idea. Because what you're adding to the film, a number of pre-prepared answers, right? All of which will mean exactly the same thing. Yes. All of which point to the same spot. So why are you doing it? Yeah. Why are you wasting more time? Yeah. It's saying, create an interactive element with the film. That's not a draw to this, because you expect sitting through the last hour and a half to get to that point is worth it. No chance. Then we get where I think also a lot of the money went for this film is when they have those triple sections on the screen.
And the picture, yeah.
And they show all the pictures, and it looks like storyboards of what potentially New Rome could look like. And I put in all caps, why are they showing me the storyboard for shit they didn't get around to filming? That's where all the money went on all of these pictures in the triple frame, which we see for about 0.001 seconds. Yes. I hate this.
It looks awful. I'm sorry, but
Sorry,
I know, it's subjective, the design of it. But it looks like something out of a biology textbook.
It does.
You put a mushroom under a microscope, and that is Francis Ford Coppola's idea of Megalopolis.
Yeah.
Is a utopian ideal. It just looks bad.
It does. He's never been on a travelator before?
No. His miracle invention of getting around the place. Giant spheres with little, like, golden travelators, and it's like, it's a metaphor for the film. He thinks he's done something new,
Yeah.
and it isn't.
And it isn't. Yeah, you're absolutely right. He's never been to an airport, clearly. I mean, it's just baffling. Not nearly done with all the notes on my phone. There was a lot, I did warn you. There was one point where they were having a card game over at the table. I think it was Caesar, I think it was Natalie Emanuel, I think it was Giancarlo Esposito and his wife.
Yes.
And you turned to me and you said, "Are you not enjoying it?" And I had my hands over my face and I just said, "I feel like I'm being disemboweled." I honestly, I couldn't. And then when they reveal to Giancarlo Esposito's character that they're having a baby, him and Natalie Emanuel,
Yep.
they list the names for it. And they say if it's a girl, it'll be called whatever. And if it's a boy, it will be named Francis.
Oh, yeah.
Ooh, will it now, you dick?
Listen, he spent 120 million bucks on it. He can call the baby in, his own name.
I mean, yeah, he can. Doesn't make it good. I'll save my favourite note till last. The pensive little pool thing where the Wow... What's her name?
Wow
Her name
Platinum.
is Wow Platinum.
Wow Platinum.
Played by Aubrey Plaza. My God, what a fucking stupid name. Her face appears and
It
rotates.
spins like it's an episode
Of Doctor Who from the 1980s. That's what it looks like. It's terrible. Adam Driver's shooting in the face, spoiler, is a metaphor. You get shot in the face and then you somehow have to suffer even more fucking garbage after it. Even that is not enough for this to be the end. And then
dodgy CGI.
Very
during
dodgy
that,
CGI.
with him like experiencing some sort of mental break. He's like
Yeah.
in this sort of temple thing, and his dead wife's spirit comes to him.
Yeah.
And it's odd.
It looks like an Olivia Newton-John music video. Is what it looks like. Then we get to John Voight in bed. Now,
a sentence that should never be said
yes,
again.
I wrote earlier that John Voight said that he was eternal. He said that he was immortal or something. Mm-hmm. And I said, that's a shame because I'd much rather he was dead. And then he ate someone's shoulder. And I thought, yeah, I wish you weren't here. Then he says the most questionable line in the history of cinema. What do you think of this boner I have? I put, what do you think of this what you have? And then not only is that not enough, but he reveals that his boner is in fact a loaded crossbow. And then he shoots Aubrey Plaza in the chest, and then shoots Shia LaBeouf twice in the arse, and then goes, and I think I have made things better than this.
No, I'm sorry. The cinematography of him with the sheet over the crossbow,
Yeah.
and then of him, it's the shot of him slightly pulling it back, but because he's about 700 years old, he can't pull it all the way, so it just looks comical.
Yeah, it does. It's to the point where I wrote, Blackadder goes to New Rome.
Yes.
Because that's exactly what it felt like. But my favourite note, which isn't exactly at the end of the film, but it was sort of the point where I thought I'll slow down now, because I'm just writing the same thing about how much I hate it over and over again, is this. Dustin Hoffman just fucking dies. There is a moment where Shia LaBeouf is at a rally and his closest advisor comes up to him and says, what is it, he tried to challenge you politically?
Yeah, no, there's a scene before this where he talks with Giancarlo Esposito, Dustin Hoffman, about, because Shia LaBeouf has got these political aspirations,
Yeah.
and Dustin Hoffman's like, oh wow, this kid's dangerous, let me see what I can do. And scene ends, it's about 10-15 minutes passes, and then it comes to the scene with the advisor about, we caught Dustin Hoffman's character snooping around,
Yeah.
and then quick cut, just an avalanche of a building falls on Dustin Hoffman's head. He goes,
"Ah!" This random Roman pillar as he goes, "Ah!" And then he gets twatted, and that's it. And that is appearance number 4 of Dustin Hoffman. That takes about 2 seconds,
Yes.
and then he's gone.
Yep. Cheers.
Brilliant.
Okay. What did he add to the film?
Nothing. So that's the end of my notes from my phone. Basically, what I wanted to get the message across is that I was so moved out of anger by this film, I can comfortably say now that it is definitely the worst film I've ever seen.
Yes, it's...
And I want to compare it to something that I watched last week,
Uh-huh.
which, as far as I know, was beginning to be made in 2019, was then finished in 2020, but then post-production took until 2022 because of COVID and whatnot. So it had its festival release, I think, in 2022, and I think its general public release was this year, which is why I think I'd be able to include it in my top films of the year, right? Hundreds of Beavers is a film made by Mike Cheslick on $150,000. And it embraces that and makes it, it's this sort of live action cartoon slapstick. This kind of kinetic version of a kid's comic book. I mean, it's absolutely not a kid's film. Anyone can enjoy it at all. But it looked a million times better. It's designed to look ridiculous and ropey and kind of, you know, low budget in a really interesting, creative, cool way. And it looks 100 million times better. It is honestly incomparable to Megalopolis. It is so far superior a film and was made for a tiny fraction of the budget. And you go, what the hell could you possibly have needed $120 million for this?
Yeah.
It's just a series of green or blue screens chucked around, horrible dialogue in terrible performances with bang average set design, completely uncreative costume, makeup, hair, all the rest of it. And it is no wonder that this film has lost $108.6 million.
Like, ultimately, its seriousness and its pretentiousness combined with the utter incompetence and amateur visuals just undermines it totally.
Yeah.
Like, you know, it evangelizes this, you know, this new way of doing things. Like Adam Driver says, why do we have to continue doing things the way we've always done them? Why can't we do things on a different path? But the different path that he presents, Francis Ford Coppola, through this is just, it's an orgy. Like, much like its Roman setting, it just flails about. It's just a messy amalgamation of limbs and ideas and get it out of my sight.
Well, it tries to do the Caligula thing of loads of, you know, debauchery and stuff, and that being the symbol of power or something in a new room, and it does it so badly. Like, so badly. It's just going, can you girls, do you mind kissing? Yeah, good. Aubrey Plaza, I've written some dialogue for you in this scene with Shia LaBeouf. If you could just say the most crass things possible and expect it to mean something, that'd be really great. And this is my
barely disguised fetish.
Honestly, I do have to say this now. I think it's an incredibly misogynistic film. I think Francis Ford Coppola has written characters. I think he thinks he's done feminism.
No.
I think he thinks that the fact that Aubrey Plaza uses her sexuality and her allure to Shia LaBeouf to manipulate him and get what she wants, I think is his idea of a progressive female character. And you forget that the rest of the time she's horning over Adam Driver. There is one scene where, on a really cold day in New Rome, where Adam Driver's wearing a big coat and a scarf and lots of layers, and Aubrey Plaza is stood wearing sort of like a jumpsuit, and it is designed to show off her chest, and so Caesar comes up to her and goes, "What the hell are you doing? You must be freezing." Takes off his coat, gives it to her, and she goes, "Oh, I knew you'd do that." And then he wraps a scarf around her, and you think, right, okay, a coat and a scarf, she's warm now, and Coppola makes her keep revealing her chest, over and over again, and you go, "You're wearing a coat, it's cold, cover the fuck up." But he can't help himself, and this whole idea of lesbianism being this great big sign of modernization and rebellion and all the sort of thing, and it's like, no, this is not the bacchanalian debauchery you think it is. It's just nonsense. And we got about 2 hours in and went, this isn't going to pass the Bechdel test, is it? And you asked me that and I was like, no chance.
The worst part of that scene where she's in the park waiting for him is that when he gives her the coat and he gives her the scarf, showing off the lack of subtlety of this film, she takes the coat, she takes the scarf, she, smells it, breathes it in.
Yeah.
I love your manly scent.
Yeah, she says it's like sandalwood, doesn't
Yeah.
she? Yeah. Oh, God.
There's so many bad things in this film
It is endlessly
that you
terrible.
can forget 10 of them.
Yeah, easily.
Like, we haven't even mentioned the desk thing in
Oh my God. Natalie Emmanuel walks into a room and gets a sort of metaphorical premonition, potentially of the future, potentially of a dangerous future. It's never explained. Where Giancarlo Esposito's desk is essentially submerged and lopsided because of loads of sand. And it's an image that's on the screen for about 1.5 seconds, and it broke the pair of us. We just could not stop laughing at how ridiculous it was. I mean, it was so fucking funny. Just she walks in and he's got that same classic blank expression on his face, and he's just like, all right. And his desk is fucked. It's just gone. It's just ruined. So, okay, the point I'm trying to make on the whole is that you don't need to I was saying to Kuba, I don't want to watch this film. And he was like, no, Colin, you've got to see it. You know, you were right. I did need to see it to see how terrible it was. But I don't want anyone else to see it, right? No. But what I'm going to do now is what I wanted to do for the whole episode, but I thought we're really going to struggle. Right. How do we fix Megalopolis? How do you go about doing it properly?
The old Mice and Men special. I'd take Francis out behind the sheds, tell him to think of the rabbits, tell him to think of his vineyards that he sold to make this, and then I'd send him to sleep.
Yes, take him out the back.
Yes.
And do what's kindest. Mm-hmm. I think, okay, you can have sort of Titanic Empire idea centered around New York, where one visionary wants to, use his extraordinary gifts in a way which is going to benefit mankind, and the political circumstances are what he has to battle in order for that to happen. Yeah. Despite his vision being obviously a helpful, good idea, his political opponents are what stop him from doing the right thing for the broader city. That is not original, but it's a coherent tale. It's a workable idea, and it doesn't need all the unnecessary bullshit that came along with this.
The Roman thing is ultimately what kills it, I think. Well, it's not ultimately what kills it. There's 7 million things that kill it. But it's one of the contributory factors, because it's just heaving under the weight of this new Rome setting, and it doesn't add anything.
Yeah, it detracts from the entire message of the film.
Like, the film is set in about 4 different time periods. Yeah. You've got ancient Rome, you've got modern New York, you've got New York in the 20s, and with the sort of crime and, spiraling out of control thing, you've got hints of like 70s, 80s in there as well. And all of that just combines in an awful, awful way. He can't decide which time period he wants it to be from one scene to the next.
Yeah. I think, you're right, he can't. I think you don't need Shia LaBeouf. I think you need to write the characters not in a caricature way, which is what they are. It's a different key of acting. Yeah, and that key is F sharp minor played fucking flat as fuck. That's what it sounds like.
The Catalan conspiracy, which is the basis of the film, adds nothing.
No.
Of all the, if you're going to use a metaphor for the fall of the Roman Republic translating to the fall of the American Republic, why do you use the Catalan conspiracy, something that nobody's ever heard of, instead of, I don't know, Julius Caesar and, Brutus and whatever? Because he clearly wants Shakespeare to be in it, so why not just do a straightforward adaptation?
Why not just do Julius Caesar?
Exactly.
I mean, it would make. I've done Julius Caesar. It's what the play is about.
Yes.
It's the point of the play.
Like, why do a ham-fisted sort of alternate take on a different conspiracy that nobody's ever heard of? Instead of just that.
And then when they do bring up Shakespeare, like Mark Kermode says, he goes, have you heard of this play called Hamlet? Oh. It's really good. Let me read something to you.
He just starts dancing about and he goes, to be or not to be. And then
that is the question.
It's just, oh god. And he did the prancing about. I don't know who told him to start prancing about, but both Adam Driver and Shia LaBeouf do it. They just start hopping out into that sort of the June walk that they have to do to avoid. That's what that reminded me of. It's why I understand you want Adam Driver wants to portray himself as, sort of uncaring, and you've got the whole Two Faces thing, and Shia LaBeouf is Shia LaBeouf.
Yes,
but
obviously.
Why?
No, why remains the big question. Trying to fix Megalopolis is a pointless exercise because many people have already done it. So this is the whole point of Megalopolis, is it doesn't need to exist.
No.
And it brings me on to the point of thinking, well, 40 years, ever since, I think ever since The Godfather 2, or I think ever since Apocalypse Now, maybe, he's been trying to make this film.
Yes.
And it's what's worrying is it's still confusing to him why nobody wanted to help him do it, and why he had to fund it himself. And that brings me on to the big point I want to talk about, which is the broader impact on Coppola's legacy. Now, I'm a big believer in the fact that you should trust the tale, not the teller. I guess I think the story sometimes outdoes all your preconceptions about who this person is. I think sometimes a filmmaker you really dislike can come up with something actually really arresting and really interesting and meaningful. And each film is essentially independent of the others, for the most part. But I can't help thinking that all the subtext people have read into stuff like The Godfather, which is long. They're 3 hours, those films. I can't help but wonder if that subtext is entirely audience created now. Because this came direct from his mind. The fact that there were no executives with a big stick telling him what he could and couldn't do, and he funded it all himself, and he got to make it exactly the way he wanted, shows that this is his ideal vision, this is his ideal manner of an artistic creation. And that worries me.
Well, you've got, also the stuff that everybody acclaims about him, your Godfather, your Apocalypse Now. You've got to keep in mind that the actual script of The Godfather is based on a novel, I'm pretty sure, by Mario Puzo, I think. I think that's the name. And Apocalypse Now is a sort of Vietnam-based retelling of Joseph Conrad's Heart of Darkness.
Yeah.
So all the ideas in that
are already existing.
Exactly, and he just translates to that screen. He does it well. He does it great.
Yeah.
But when it comes here to something entirely of his own creation, entirely of his own themes, he falls on every conceivable metric.
Yeah.
So maybe that's the lesson here.
I mean, it might be this. He works better with other people's material. I mean, it's his first film in 13 years, right? So his focus has been all on this. I mean, you look at one of his more successful works, Dracula.
Yeah, Bram Stoker.
That's Bram Stoker. Yeah. It's nothing to do with him, right? You can, we don't know yet, but we may be able to look at the Robert Eggers adaptation of Nosferatu and think that this might be something completely new and it's doing it differently. Dracula, it doesn't, right? It tells a story beautifully and it looks fabulous, but it's not new or it's not innovative. I mean, he's a writer on so many of his projects. New York Stories, Godfathers, Part 3, Captain EO, Cotton Club, Youth Without Youth, Tetro, Twixt, and Megalopolis. But it makes me worry. And here's the thing. My perhaps big cinematic faux pas is that the Godfather movies, I think, are 4 stars.
Really?
I love the performances you get out of them. I love the characterization of all the individuals. And I think it's a very classic tale of business and those relationships. But I've never really found there to be much beyond those things. I always thought that the joy of them were the threat that each character carries and what they could do, and their confidence and their assurance in themselves and their relationships between one another and all that stuff. I thought was brilliant. I mean, it's undeniably great, but that was always it. I was never moved by another layer, or I was never thought about what it was saying more broadly. I was just sort of thinking, just solely contained within the story. This is really exciting, but outside of it, I'm not finding anything for me. And I think now, personally, I feel justified in that particular view because he can't do subtext. He just can't do it. He can't even. It's so strange to me that he doesn't let the audience even get the chance to interpret things themselves. Number one, you can't see enough of what is going on.
No.
Number two, you don't get the time to ingest anything and read it in your own way.
No.
Because somebody will come along and say exactly what you're meant to be feeling at that point.
Yeah.
And it makes me think, okay, why are my favourite directors Christopher Nolan, Edgar Wright and Jordan Peele? Oh, it's because there are a million things that I can think about them outside of simply what the story is trying to say to me.
Yeah.
I can't do that with Coppola. And the more I think about it, the more I think all of his films that I have seen, the stories are fascinating and the look of them is really interesting, and he knows how to get characters across. I mean, that's it. I mean, for most people, that's enough. They can't deny the man's success and popularity. There's no denying that at all. But there hasn't... I feel justified now in not ever having found another layer. I was wondering if it was my interpretation, if it was my reading of it.
Right.
But I think this just kind of... because it's so much his vision, because it's so much his influence and his decisions. I think you have to take this as the purest version of him. Unless you account for dementia.
Well, unless you account for that and the copious amounts of weed that apparently he was smoking behind the scenes.
Which makes sense.
Yes, because this film can only be fully understood unless, if you've imbibed about 30 illegal substances.
Of course.
It's hopeless.
On that topic, then,
Yes.
do you think this does have a broader implication for his legacy or his other work, or do you think that trust the tale, not the teller, and this is a sole contained thing, and it won't matter?
I mean, you've got to say it's got an impact on his image as a director. If something's your life project for 40 years, and this is the number one thing you want made, and it comes out like this, not every director has the chance to make their own fully funded, fully realised project of what they want to do. No, not everyone has their own passion project.
Yeah.
Most people there's studio interference, you've got completing demands, you don't have the money. This is what he wanted to make. And so we've got to judge him by that.
Yeah.
And the final verdict has got to be...
we should have just kept the wine.
Yes.
Basically. Okay. Well, the last thing I wanted to talk about on this topic is something that I've spoken about with Drew before on our podcast. And there was I'm sure you remember, there was a controversy a couple of years ago when Mr. Scorsese was slightly sniffy about Marvel movies.
Yes.
He said that they were roller coasters, not cinema.
Yeah.
And he has since, tried to clarify that a bit more and said that he doesn't think that they're not meaningful or that they don't have weight to people or emotion with them. However, the real problem in that discussion that we had was what was expanded on by Francis Ford Coppola, who said he called them despicable, Marvel movies. And he said, well, because of the lack of risk in the production. Marty Scorsese says the Marvel movie pictures are not cinema. He's right, because we expect to learn something from cinema. We expect to gain some enlightenment, some knowledge, some inspiration. Arguably, I don't know that anyone gets anything out of seeing the same movie over and over again, which is the Marvel movies. A thing that has no risk to it. I've said before, making a film without risk is like making a baby without sex. Part of it is risk, and that's what makes it so interesting, and that's why we learn so much when it's made. Now, you hear that, and you think, from the guy that made Jack,
Yeah.
from the guy that just made Megalopolis, and you go, what? Seeing the same movie over and over again. Francis, you've just made a direct copy of every film that's better than yours.
He talks about risk, but in himself, he's incredibly reactionary, both in his filmmaking and in the views espoused in that filmmaking. Like, he's cribbed all the way from Metropolis to Caligula to, Shakespeare and Thomas Becket and whatever. And the views in this film is basically, I think Adam Driver's character is asked by Natalie Emmanuel, what one institution would you like to keep in your future, your utopian city? And he says marriage.
Yes.
And you can see it all the way, the way that women don't really have agency in this film, in the way that a major subplot is the virginal thing of Vesta, and how that's made to be a good thing, made to be purity and whatever.
I mean, she's so outwardly celebrated for it.
Yes.
I mean, they literally idolise her because of it.
Yes, and all of it comes down to a fundamentally conservative view of the world, one that hasn't changed since he started filmmaking back in the 60s.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about Coppola movies is that, sort of like Todd Phillips, they all have a very bleak view of human nature, I think. I think they're all Hobbesian. They're all, as you say, traditional conservative. And not, and I mean that with a small c. I think Coppola's voice now matters less than it did before. And that doesn't, I'm not saying that his films don't matter and some of the themes he discusses aren't important. This could have been made with all of the themes that it has in a really timely, interesting, delicate manner.
Yeah.
And it was made by a fat white old bloke with a giant fist smoking a load of marijuana with nobody over the top of him with a big stick to stop him.
Yes.
And it brings me back to that thing of artists work so much better when they have limitations on their work. If you ever needed a case study that limitations are necessary for art, it's this.
Yeah.
Because there will have been something, even though I personally think the Godfather films, whilst are enthralling, I think they are a bit overlong and a little bit bloated. There will have been things that he will have had to work around, things to work against, things to adapt to, things to change. And what he produces out of it is something extraordinary. What he produces here is the pointless, meaningless, undefined ramblings of a man who thinks he's read enough about something to convert it into this. And what he's actually done is made, I think, the worst film of all time.
Yeah. There's a good case for that. And that's sad, really, because I think you said this to me a couple of weeks back, the fact that this huge passion project, which has been independently financed, has failed to such a degree, is going to be used as an excuse by producers to cut good things out of good movies made by good directors in the future. And that's sad.
The financial success of it, yeah, you're right, will feed into the idea that producers start going, well, hey, told you we knew what we're talking about.
Yeah.
So take that out. And, you know, my desire for brevity is never to do with being callous and just getting rid of loads of scenes because you don't need them. I like scenes which don't necessarily contribute but reinforce or let you bask in a certain feeling or an environment or whatever. I like them because cinema is an experiential medium and you have to have an experience with it. You can't just be as efficient as possible and that's it. But this kind of nonsense will stop those things from happening, and we will. I think an example has to be made of Francis Ford Coppola, not of this style of filmmaking necessarily.
No, yeah, like other directors, I think, would have been more disciplined. Other directors would have not made this whole thing in the first place.
This entire thing was doomed from the start, and it is only through selfishness and indulgence that this now exists as a project.
Like, we haven't talked about so many of the other bad things.
This could go on for another hour.
Like, the pacing of the film, how at once it is dull and one of the slowest moving things in history, and yet all of the major plot points and drivers of the film are resolved within minutes.
Yeah.
Like, he gets thrown in prison. Oh, he's back out again. He loses his power to stop time.
Well, he's back now.
He gets shot in the head and
he's alive now. Honestly, you're right. Every single thing that it tries to do is just absolutely pointless, and there's no stakes. And this is the thing: is there's no risk in them because there's no stakes, whatever.
Yes.
There's no risk and stakes in this. I mean, it's nonsensical, and it just looks so hideous.
Yes.
I mean, I was ready to even the dream sequences to go. Oh well, that's an interesting idea to go from these surreal images to this, and actually, no.
It's an ugly film. It's a very
Really
ugly film.
You can't see a lot of what is happening.
Even by the standards of modern filmmaking, you know, the criticisms you get of Marvel and Disney films, how the color grading makes them all look just grey.
Yeah.
This is uglier than that.
By a long way. Block yellows, light flares that literally detract from being able to see. I mean, he shoots crowd scenes trying to trick us that there's a crowd, and I can see there's about 10 people, and that's it. I can see that that's your lot, Francis. There's not a lot of. I can tell that he's directed it badly. Like, it's really badly directed, and he doesn't. I still think he doesn't know that. I still think that he thinks what he's made is brilliant. And listen, it's his. At the end of the day, it's his money, and his project, and if he's happy with it, then I suppose let him be happy with it.
Yes.
But it is one of the biggest wastes of money humanity has ever produced.
The camera work as well. Oh, God.
Awful.
Shot on iPhone.
Shot on iPhone.
Yeah,
Shot on
he
GoPro. He only gets Natalie Emanuel and Giancarlo Esposito speak Latin so that he can have his favourite font back on screen for a bit.
Yep.
Oh, wait, like, if you're gonna have a reading, have a reading. Don't have a reading and someone doing a voiceover, and then you take away the reading. You might as well have not had the reading.
Yes. They also look like they were made on PowerPoint.
Yeah, they do.
The transitions, like you've slapped over your Roman style background with your favourite font, Lawrence Fishburne reading over it. Yeah, okay, yeah, put that in.
Mm-hmm. And you might be thinking, well, this is all very sort of. It was all very, very negative. Well, what if there's an angle you've missed here? And I've read the 5-star reviews that people have given it on Letterboxd, and they're all talking bollocks. Every single person who thinks like, well, if you look at it from this angle, no. There is no angle you can look at this and think that this works on any level. So, to go back to our lists from last week, Napoleon's now number 2.
Yes.
And this is now number 1.
Yes.
This is absolutely the worst filmic experience I've ever had. There are probably films from the 70s and 80s made on a shoestring budget which are objectively worse than this, but for all the properties that it has, a huge budget, the experienced director, the strong in some parts cast, and they managed to produce this. Every single directing faux pas which any year 1 film student would look at and make those mistakes and then learn from, he has made them now at the end of his career.
Yes.
And that's totally baffling. It reminds me weirdly of Into the Spider-Verse, because there's a scene where, in order not to get noticed too much, Miles Morales deliberately gets every single question on a multiple choice test wrong.
Yes.
And the teacher goes, in order to get every question wrong, if you give this to a monkey, they'd get 25%.
Yep.
In order to get every question wrong, you have to get every question right.
Yes.
And I'm thinking, now, if Francis Ford Coppola decides that he will make a sequel to this, which does the exact reverse, which gets everything right, I will take my hat off to him and say, you are a fucking genius. You have shown everyone what a bad film, what the worst film ever looks like, and then you inverted all of it and made the best film ever. That's not going to happen, but if it did, I'd be a very, very happy man.
Oh, Lord.
I think that's... If we're just going to keep rambling about shit that's bad in it if we keep talking about it. So I am going to leave it there.
What about a positive note? Shall we not? Can you find at least one positive thing to say about it?
It lost all of its money. He's not going to do it again. That's a positive note. And I never drank his wine in the first place. So there you go. There's the positive note. I want to make a more positive podcast next time out. We'll do the Star Wars one soon. I'm going to try and rewatch some of them just to make sure I've got a solid idea of what, because some of them I've only seen once and they were a while ago. I actually don't think I ever finished Attack of the Clones because I was so fucking bored.
For good reason.
Yeah. So we'll see. But I'll try to do that one next, and that'll be hopefully a more positive spin and not just a giant complaining fest. But it is important to note how bad this film is so that people don't do this sort of thing again.
Yeah, don't go see it. Whatever.
Yeah, don't waste your money. Just don't. You don't even need to see it. We've already explained everything. I mean, this podcast is better than the film Megalopolis.
Yeah.
Comfortably.
Yeah.
You can't even see anything.
Listen to this, and it's much better.
Yep, I've had more fun doing this than I had watching the film. By a lot. I finished the film actively angry, and it was only because If I Got News For You was on that my mood was lifted a little bit because I was able to giggle for a bit. So, Cuba, thank you very much again for joining me. Sorry to rope you back in, but I needed to exercise this for my system with someone. I hope you've enjoyed listening to it, and hopefully you don't go and watch Megalopolis after this because it is the worst film ever.
Yeah.
One hell of a note to end it on. Thank you and goodbye.
Bye.